Welcome back to another session on literary criticism and theory. We continue with the lyric forms. We did what lyrics are. We studied odes. We studied the two different types of odes, the Pindaric ode and the Horatian ode. Now we move on to another category. These are all subcategories subcategories of lyrics itself. Though lyrics are meant to be or said to be shorter poems, these are subcategories of lyrics only. They have a rhythm, they express an emotion, so they are categorized or they come under lyrics itself. So you have the categories that fall under, the subcategories that come under lyrics are odes, elegy, sonnet. These are the ones, and also you have dramatic monologue. Dramatic monologue also comes under lyrics. Alright, so let's begin. We'll start with elegy. Let's again begin with its origin. In ancient Greece, the term elegy covered war songs, love poems, political verses, lamentation for the dead, and in fact it covered all sorts of subjects, both grave subjects as well as happy subjects. The Greeks judged this composition by its form. It was not based on its subject matter as we have it today. It was mostly the Greeks judged it by the composition of its form and the structure. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ആ ഫോമിനെ ബേസ് ചെയ്തിട്ടാണ് അത് എലിജി എന്ന് വിളിച്ചിരുന്നത്. അല്ലാതെ അതിൻ്റെ സബ്ജക്റ്റ് മാറ്റർ അല്ല എടുത്തിരുന്നത്. It was written in elegiac measure, a couplet which is composed of dactylic hexameter and dactylic pentameter. What is dactylic hexameter and what is dactylic pentameter? Dactylic hexameter means one long syllable which is followed by two short syllables. One long syllable is followed by two short syllables, and it is repeated, or it happens 6 times in the first line. First line la 6 തവണ ഒരു long syllable രണ്ട് ഷോർട്ട് സിലബിളും അതിൽ ഒരു ലോങ് സിലബിളും രണ്ട് ഷോർട്ട് സിലബിൾ becomes one. Okay, one time, and in that manner 6 times it is repeated in the first line, and that makes it dactylic hexameter. And it is again done, the same thing is done 5 times in the second line. 5 times in the second line, which makes it dactylic pentameter. Okay, so one long syllable followed by two short syllable makes it dactylic hexameter. Which is repeated 6 times, make it dactylic hexameter. And dactylic pentameter means the same thing, one long syllable followed by two short syllable 5 times makes it dactylic pentameter. So dactylic means one long syllable followed by two short syllables. Okay. So according to the Greeks, any poem which is written in this meter is ranked as elegy. Whatever the theme be, ഏത് തീമായാലും ഈ ഒരു മീറ്ററിൽ അതിനെ കമ്പോസ് ചെയ്യുന്നതിനെയാണ് എലിജി എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. അതായത് ഡാക്ടിലിക് ഹെക്സാമീറ്ററിലും ഡാക്ടിലിക് പെൻറ്റാമീറ്ററിലും കമ്പോസ് ചെയ്തതിനെയാണ് ഗ്രീക്കുകാർ ഇതിനെ എലിജി എന്ന് വിളിച്ചിരുന്നത്. തീം ഏതും ആയിക്കോട്ടെ, ഗ്രേവ് ആവാം, സീരിയസ് ആവാം, ലാമിറ്റേഷൻ ആവാം, ഹാപ്പി ആയിട്ടുള്ള സോങ്സ് ആവാം, എന്തും ആയിക്കോട്ടെ ഈ ഒരു മീറ്ററിൽ എഴുതുന്നതിനെയാണ് എലിജി എന്ന് ഗ്രീക്സ് പറഞ്ഞത്. Whereas in the modern connotation, it is different. Nowadays, it is the theme that matters. Theme in our importance. Meter not importance. Theme in our importance. And the classical elegiac measure is not used in English verse. ഈ ഒരു മീറ്റർ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഈ ഒരു എലിജിക് measure, നമ്മൾ നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞ എലിജിക് മെഷർ, എ കപ്ലെറ്റ് കമ്പോസ്ഡ് ഓഫ് dactylic hexameter followed by dactylic pentameter, that is not used in English verse. English poems. Okay. ഒന്ന് ശ്വാസം വിടാം അല്ലേ. അപ്പോൾ an elegy nowadays takes its name from the subject matter. അപ്പോൾ ഇപ്പോഴത്തെ ഒരു ഇതിൽ നമ്മൾ എലിജി എന്താണെന്ന് പറയുകയാണെങ്കിൽ സബ്ജക്റ്റ് മാറ്ററിനാണ് ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻസ്. ഏതാണോ സബ്ജക്റ്റ് മാറ്റർ, ആ സബ്ജക്റ്റ് മാറ്റർ, നൗ ലെറ്റ്സ് ലുക്ക് അറ്റ് വാട്ട് ദ സബ്ജക്റ്റ് മാറ്റർ ഈസ്. ആ സബ്ജക്റ്റ് മാറ്ററിൽ എഴുതുന്ന ഏത് പോയമോ അത് ഇറ്റ് കംസ് അണ്ടർ എലിജി. Okay, so there are no rules actually laid down for meter, but a theme of elegy should be mournful according to the modern usage. അതിൻ്റെ തീം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് സങ്കടമായിരിക്കും, മോസ്റ്റ്ലി റിഫ്ലക്റ്റീവ് ആയിരിക്കും, മോസ്റ്റ്ലി മോൺഫുൾ ആയിരിക്കും, റിഫ്ലക്റ്റീവ് ആയിരിക്കും. ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് യൂഷ്വലി എ ലാമെൻറ്റേഷൻ ഫോർ ദ ഡെഡ്. മരിച്ചവരെ ഓർത്തിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ഓർമ്മക്കുറിപ്പ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഓർമ്മ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അതിൻ്റെ ആ മരിച്ചു പോയ ആളെ ഓർത്തിട്ടുള്ളൊരു ദുഃഖം അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ദ ലോസ് ഈസ് ബീയിങ് സ്പോക്കൺ ഓഫ്. ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് ലാമെൻറ്റിങ് the death of somebody. Okay, and it may be used to inspire by other very somber themes. Other themes also very somber, very serious, very grave themes like unrequited love. You love somebody but that love is not responded. You love your husband a lot but your husband does not respond, or you love your parents a lot and the parents does not give you much love. That's also unrequited. Unrequited normally is for the husband and wife, or normally for the lovers. Unrequited love. Okay, so it is a lament over that, the fall of a famous city, and like that. So it is written as a tribute to something loved and lost. As a rule, it is less spontaneous than the lyric. Lyric pole alla, less spontaneous. But there are certain places when in elegy also you have that spontaneity also comes like in the lyric form. In some of the elegies you will have, like in Tennyson's break, break, break. It is often written in that style. Okay, anyway, so as per the rule, it is less spontaneous and than the lyric. Except in the case when it takes a purely lyrical form. Okay. So, writing an elegy, an English poet is not limited to any one form. He can choose whatever seems to him most fitting. Some of the touching poems of personal loss has been written in very simple simple language. The formal elegy usually aims at an effect of dignity and solemnity without a sense of strain or artificiality. അതിനകത്ത് വല്ലാണ്ട് ഒരുപാട് ഭയങ്കര ഒരു ആർട്ടിഫിഷ്യൽ വാക്കും ഭയങ്കര എലിവേറ്റഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള വാക്കൊക്കെ ഉപയോഗിച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ആർട്ടിഫിഷ്യലായി പോകും. ലിസിഡസ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന മിൽട്ടൺ എഴുതിയ എഡ്വേർഡ് കിങ് ഇങ്ങനെ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് എഴുതിയിട്ടുള്ളതാണ് ലിസിഡസ്. ലിസിഡസിനകത്ത് we can say that there's a lot of artificiality in it. അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് we say that Lament of Lycidas, or Lament of Milton on his friend Edward King, whom he sincerely loved, is though it is his sincere love is portrayed there, we find that it is a little more artificial. Whereas if you look at In Memoriam, on the other hand, you will find that the lament of Tennyson upon the death of Arthur Hallam, his close friend, his very close friend. Tennyson was a very sensitive person. And Arthur Hallam was his best friend. And Arthur Hallam died of drowning. He drowned. There was a shipwreck and he drowned. And Arthur Hallam was actually supposed to get married to Tennyson's sister also. But days or months before their wedding, he dies. And there's a lot of grief, and that too, terrible grief that is expressed in the poem. We can feel that the poet's heart break, actually. So there's a lot of sincerity in that poem than Lycidas. If you will find that Milton is lamenting, of course, he's lamenting, but again, there's a lot of artificiality in that lament. Likewise, you have Adonai. Adonai is another elegy written by Shelley on the death of Keats. That's also very from the heart. His mourning, from mourning to consolation, and then so there is a lot of less artificiality there, but only in Lycidas, not completely. Some places you find that Milton is trying to sometimes moves away from his original grief to modifying the poem. So when that is done, of course, there shouldn't be too much of this. Spontaneity is checked, but at the same time, your grief should be sincere and all. Okay. All right. So the best form, the magnificent portrayal of this, without any strain, without any artificiality, right from the with a lot of dignity and solemnity. The best example is which one? Our Thomas Gray's elegy written in country churchyard. Okay, and there is quatrains. It is written in quatrains, and he has used iambic pentameter, lines of 10 syllable. What is iambic pentameter? Iambic pentameter is lines of 10 syllable. You have short one followed by long one. Okay, one short syllable followed by one long syllable makes one. And likewise 5 of them. You will have 10 syllables and you divide it as 5. Okay, the short, long is 1. One short, one long. And then that is considered as 1 iamb. And then you have another short followed by another long, second iamb. Likewise, you will have 5 iambs. So totally you will have 10 syllables. Okay, and that is iambic pentameter. You have studied that in the first semester. So and English as such is it's very easy to understand iambic pentameter than the other complex ones. Iambic pentameter is easy to understand because English as such is a language spoken, written in iambic pentameter, mostly in an iambic pentameter. The rain in Spain falls mainly in the plains. The rain in Spain falls mainly in the plains. So you'll have one short followed by one long, short, long, short, long. Likewise, that is the 10 syllables. Clear? Okay. Few of the most important elegies of this sort of poem which we have in the modern times, the lamenting, would be like for instance an example from the medieval poem the Gawain poet. We have discussed that in methodology of literature when we did the medieval period Gawain poets. So Pearl is actually an anonymous poem, but and therefore we refer it to as the Gawain poet. Pearl is an elegy for a dead child, a daughter who died just 2 years of age. She is the pearl of the poem's title, and the poet uses this image for her throughout. The poem is narrated by the grieving parent, the father of the lost child, who tells the reader of how he lost his pearl in a garden. After that, he falls asleep, and he has a dream-like sequence. His spirit is transported to a bright and beautiful land, and on the other side of the stream by which he stands, he sees a beautiful maiden dressed in white. It is a symbol of purity, and she's wearing pearls, the spirit form of his lost daughter. Now it tells him that he should not grieve for her death. The maiden reminds the poet that though the earthly form dies, the spiritual form will be kept alive in heaven thanks to the Lord. So that's a kind of elegy, lamenting the death, and then eventually you have a consolation. The poem elegy normally ends with a consolation. Okay, consoling, a consolation. And then we have Chaucer's Book of Duchess. That's also elegies in the mode of dream allegory. You have Alfred Lord Tennyson's In Memoriam, which I discussed on the death of his friend Arthur Hallam. You have W.H. Auden's In Memory of W.B. Yeats. And you have Thomas Gray's elegy written in a country churchyard, which is not mourning the death of anybody, but mourning the death of human life as such, how short life is. It is mostly a broader, used in an older and broader, more somber meditation on mortality of man. Gray's elegy written in country churchyard. And then you have Lycidas, Milton's Lycidas. You have Shelley's Adonais. Then you have Spenser's Astrophel on the death of Sir Philip Sidney. So these are all notable elegies. Now you have different types of elegy. You have the subtype of elegy, which is the pastoral elegy. And in a pastoral elegy, it represents the poet, the one who is mourning. He is represented as a shepherd. Okay. Now the Latin word for shepherd is pastor, and hence pastoral elegy. So this poetic form was originated in the Sicilian Greek or Greece, and by the Sicilian Greek poet Theocritus, and this was continued by the Roman poet Virgil, and it became popularized. It got developed and popularized and was used mostly in most European countries during the Renaissance. And even now, it remained a very important aspect in English poetry through the 19th century. Now, notable English pastoral elegies. Now, if you look at all those elegies which I told you, from that, if you look at those elegies, you will find like Spenser's Astrophel is a pastoral elegy on the death of Sir Philip Sidney. Milton's Lycidas is also a pastoral elegy, where they are Milton and Edward King comes in the form of the shepherd. Shelley's Adonais, and also the Victorian critic and poet Matthew Arnold, his Thyrsis. These are all pastoral elegies. Now, pastoral elegies from the Greek through the Renaissance developed a set of elaborate conventions which are illustrated illustrated here in your textbook in page 197 with reference to Lycidas. Okay, so we shall look into how the poet uses, or how Lycidas is set an example that can be used for pastoral elegies. So you have, in addition to the fictional representation of both the mourner and the subject as shepherds, as I told you, Milton and Edward King comes as shepherds tending their flocks, we often find the following other conventional, very traditional features also. And that is the lyric. In the lyric speaker begins by the speaker of the poem, he begins by invoking the muses, goddess of poetry. And he goes on to make frequent references to other figures from classical mythology, from Greek mythology. So, in addition to this representing themselves as shepherds, you will also have the invocation to the goddess of poetry. The poem begins, the elegy begins with the invocation of invoking the goddess of poetry, and it goes on to make references to other figures of classical mythology also, Greek mythology also. And then the second conventional feature is that all nature, the whole of nature, പ്രകൃതി മൊത്തം കരയുന്ന പോലെയാണ് ഇതിനകത്ത് കാണിക്കുന്നത്. അടുത്ത കൺവെൻഷണൽ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ഫീച്ചറാണത്, ട്രഡീഷണൽ ഫീച്ചറാണ്, ഒരു എലിജിയുടെ ഒരു ട്രഡീഷണൽ ഫീച്ചറാണ്. അത് ലിസിഡസിലാണ് ഏറ്റവും നന്നായി കാണാൻ പറ്റുന്നത്. അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെയാണ് ഇത് ഒരുപാട് കൺവെൻഷൻസും ഒരുപാട് ഇത് ഫോളോ ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ ലിസിഡസിനകത്ത് ആർട്ടിഫിഷ്യാലിറ്റി കുറച്ച് കൂടിപ്പോയി, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ആ ഗ്രീഫിന് എന്തോ ഒരു ശരിക്കുള്ളൊരു ഗ്രീഫിന് എന്തോ ഒരു കോട്ടം തട്ടിയതുപോലെ തോന്നാൻ കാരണം ഒരുപാട് ഈ കൺവെൻഷണൽ ഫീച്ചേഴ്സ് വരുന്നത് കൊണ്ടാണ്. പക്ഷേ അത് ആ കൺവെൻഷണൽ ഫീച്ചേഴ്സ് ഫോളോ ചെയ്യുമ്പോഴാണ് ട്രഡീഷണൽ എലിജി ഫോം ചെയ്യുന്നതും അത് കാരണം കൊണ്ടാണ്. ബട്ട് that grief is lost. Grief is not lost, but grief somewhere, if you compare Lycidas and In Memoriam, you find that In Memoriam from Tennyson's grief is more intense, more sincere than Milton's grief. Milton was also very much broken by the death of his friend Edward King, but in the poem you find that there is a little bit of artificiality, maybe because of these conventions that he used. It's just an additional extra thing that I wanted to tell you. That's all. Okay, don't put it in your head. It's not for your exam matter. I'm just telling you. You will be studying this in detail in PG if you're going for your PG. Post-graduation, you will be studying all these pastoral elegies and all in detail, where you will find this comparison. So I just gave you an extra information. So the second feature is the whole nature is mourning the death of that shepherd. Our shepherd in their death, the പ്രകൃതി മൊത്തം പ്രകൃതിയിലും അത് കാണാം. ആ ഒരു ഗ്രീഫ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ആ സങ്കടം പ്രകൃതിയിലും കാണാൻ പറ്റും. And you will also have various other Greek mythological characters also spoken here, especially relating to nature, where you have the primitive lament for the death, where you have the vegetational deities who died in autumn to be reborn in spring. അങ്ങനത്തെയൊക്കെ കുറേ കാര്യങ്ങളാണ് ഇതിനകത്ത് വേറൊരു additional feature. So ഒന്ന് ലിറിക് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ സ്പീക്കർ തുടങ്ങുന്നത് തന്നെ by invoking the blessings or prayers, praying to the goddess of poetry. Then you have the whole nature joining or grieving the death of the shepherd. And you will also find other mythological vegetational deities who died in autumn and they are reborn in spring. And then in the next feature is the mourner charges with negligence the nymphs or the guardians of or other guardians of the dead shepherd, asking them, you could have protected him from death, you did not do your job properly. So he's charging the other spirits who could have protected the shepherds, the dead shepherd. Then there is a procession. After that, there is a procession of appropriate mourners, and you will find Greek mythology again here. You will find the most important people or most important gods of Greek mythology in the forefront. You have an appropriate procession is held, and all important gods are present there. And the poet and another feature is that the poet raises questions about justice, of fate, or of providence, and also speaks about other corrupt practices of his own times. So there's a lot of digressions. This is a digression. Sometimes it's called digression. So from one thing is moving to another. So that's also a conventional style only. So here he is raising several questions about life. What is life? What is fate? How it affects the simple ones, how it affects good people, and he also speaks about the corruptions of his time and so on. So you will find that in Lycidas. All these you will find in Lycidas. And also the post-Renaissance elegies often include an elaborate passage in which appropriate flowers are brought to deck the body. And there is a closing consolation. You will have in Christian elegies the lyric reversal from grief and despair to joy and assurance typically occurs when the elegist come to realize that death in this world is the entry to higher life. That is seen in memoriam. In the beginning and all, it is like attacking God, in the sense that there is a lot of despair and hopelessness. But eventually, when you come to the last part of in memoriam, there is a consolation, wherein the poet consoles himself, stating that there is an afterlife. Death in this world is an entry to a higher form of life. It is not the end. It is not the dead end. Life only begins after death. That is the real life, the higher form of life. Okay, so these are the things that you will find in some of these elegies. You will find all these things both in Lycidas and the Christian elegies. You will find that is one is in memoriam. That's one that I told you. The seventh feature, the closing consolation, especially in Christian elegies, you will find a reversal from grief and despair to joy and assurance. That you will find in memoriam. Then we have another type of elegy, but not elegy as such. You cannot classify it as elegy. It differs from elegy, but it's called a dirge. Dirge is a versified expression of grief on the occasion of a particular person's death. But again, it differs totally from elegy. It is short. It is less formal. It is usually represented as a text to be sung. For example, you have Shakespeare's "A full fathom 5 thy father lies," and William Collins, a song from Shakespeare, or you also have a song from Shakespeare's Cymbeline, and we also have nowadays Threnody is now used instead of dirge. It is equivalent to dirge in Vanangipara. And monody for elegy or dirge, which is represented by utterance of a single person. Okay, John Milton describes his Lycidas in the subtitle as a monody in which the author bewails a learned friend. Matthew Arnold called his elegy on Arthur Clough, Theresis, a monody. Again, it is one who is bewailing a learned friend. One person. Okay. So, threnody is now used mainly as equivalent to dirge. You have monody for an elegy or dirge again, which is represented as the utterance of a single person. John Milton's Lycidas and Matthew Arnold's Theresis. It's to be pronounced Theresis. Okay, Theresis is an example for monody. They call it a monody. So that's with the different types of elegy. With that, we shall stop with elegy. We have completed elegy, and in the next video we shall do sonnets, so that we shall finish lyric forms. Okay, so these are all subcategories. Remember, these are all subcategories of what? Lyrics. Ode, elegy, and sonnets are all even dramatic monologue. They also form subcategories of lyrics. All right. So till we meet in the next video, thank you and keep safe.